Photography thought dominated all ideas of how one should represent non-European people. Here we have what might be construed as a photograph of the natural evolutionary order as it was viewed in the 19th century. We have at the top of the visual pyramid a white man looking down on a broad base of South African bushmen who believed in the 19th century to be the very childhood of mankind. To our reading today, this is an extremely strong image, and I think illustrates one of the powers of photography, that one has the power of interpreting and reinterpreting over time. So images that meant one thing when they were produced mean something very different today.
There was a special interest in wonders and freaks. This is the celebrated hairy woman, Julia Pastrana, in fact photographed as an effigy after her death. The popular opinion of the time was that such people might be the missing link in the proof of evolution.
Well, many anthropologists were probably the most elaborate photographs themselves could be compiled within grids. And I think an example of this
In 1874, the British Association for the Advanced E.H. Mann, he is very interesting because he took photographs as well as wrote prolifically and collected for most of the major museums in Europe. These are some of the images that it images to answer questions that were posed by the armchair anthropologists in Notes and Queries. If one looks at this particular photograph with no text underneath, he describes it as Andalese shooting, dancing, sleeping and greeting, all in one photograph. If one looks at that photograph with no text, it could mean anything. The most curious ritual one has ever seen. It's only with the text that we can read this photograph properly. And only if we go back to Notes and Queries can we understand really what he was trying to describe. By contrast, the work of G.E. Dobson shows a very different vision of the Andaman Islands. He has a vision of the noble savage, somewhat exotic and voyeuristic in its approach. In the photograph of the chief of Rutland Island, we have an extremely strong and dignified image. Yet, it's interesting to see what happens to it when it's taken back to Europe and is enclosed within the European aesthetic. It's published in the Journal of the Anthropological Institute, and not only is the chief of Rutland Island emasculated by the presence of bulrushes, which were not there in the original photograph, but the image is also flipped over. This treatment of non-European subject is...
So, for the next generation of anthropologists, Mann was pursued,
which was created in a framework in which the subjects had no control. It was created to fit other people's theories, and it misrepresents people. Still today, people have very little power to change that interpretation. And I think we must be very aware of this when we're looking at early photography of non-European people.
I mean, there are very few photographs which, if showed to 1,000 people, would produce 1,000 identical responses. We bring our own presuppositions, preoccupations, preconceptions, and so we make a